So I remember staring at my redundancy notice twice in my life, wondering where do I go from here. And 10 years later, I've had a successful career in tech, including working at Google and eventually becoming a founder of my own company. There are so many things that's happened since then that I want to share with you. So 6 ideas and advice that helped me to accelerate in my career, build a life and work that I love, and they will change how you live and work forever. Number one is shorten the gap between your ideas and execution. So most people, they never want to admit this, and I was guilty of this in the earlier part of my career. Think about it, right? Most of us already know what we should be doing. We know that we should start that project. We know we should learn that skill. We know that we should put ourselves out there, but knowing and doing are two completely different things. And that distance between them, that is sadly, where most dreams die. I know this because I actually waited 10 years to start building my own personal brand online. And I waited to go through 2 rounds of redundancies in my own job, which was extremely scary already, but then to actually change my career. And on YouTube, I watched all these other people I admire creating videos. I knew I wanted to share my ideas. I had all of them in my head. I had the equipment sitting in my house, but every time I got close to actually filming, something stopped me. And for my career, it never felt like exactly the right time. I didn't feel passionate about the industry I was working at the time, but I was just too scared to take that leap to go into the unknown because it wasn't what society and friends and family think a safe and normal person should do. And then I looked up and realized that years had passed. So now the only regret was that I wish I started earlier. Do you relate to this as well? Because to wish that I started earlier to see the unexpected career and business opportunities that changed my future forever through putting myself out there, even though I was really scared. So it's actually one of the most well-documented patterns in psychology. People consistently intend to do things, but they never actually do it because that friction between deciding and doing never gets reduced. That plan stays a plan and the idea stays an idea. And the gap, it just stays wide open. Here's the thing is that we call it getting ready. But if we're honest, it's often just a socially accepted way to delay starting because we're terrified of being bad at first. Done teaches you more than planned ever will. And that's my experience. And the first version of anything you make will probably be really bad, but it doesn't mean you failed. But you just have to get out there to learn and get that feedback on what you're trying to do. So here's what I want you to take from this for the first one is that the gap is your first real competitor, not other people, not the economy, not your circumstances. The distance between what you want to do and your first move is the thing that's actually holding you back. So today, name that one thing that you've been meaning to start for more than 1 year, just one. And your job this week is not to finish it, just to take that first step. Because from my experience, momentum, it doesn't come before action. It comes from you actually doing it. And the second idea I want to share with you is building a career that doesn't follow a straight line. I call this the non-linear career or portfolio career. So for the last 50 years, the advice has been the same. Pick a lane, specialize, go deep, become the expert. And I understand why that advice exists because depth, it creates its credibility. But here's what that advice misses entirely and where most career advice gets completely wrong because specialization is becoming a trap for most people. That advice, that made sense when industries were stable for decades, when you could spend 20 years becoming the best in one thing, and the world would still need that thing. I remember when I joined my first job, the senior managing director who retired that year, he got a gold watch for his service of 40 years and a round of handshakes and was sent off on a round of drinks. That's not the world that we're living in now. AI can replicate a specialist's core output in a month. The half-life of a specific skill is getting shorter every year. And the people who are most secure right now, they're the people who has a combination of experience, skills, and perspective that cannot be easily replicated because nobody else has that exact mix. And I call it the non-linear mindset. And it's time that we should all start adopting it today. So interestingly, I came across a business thinker named Charles Handy. And he wrote about this in 1989, actually, in his book. So he predicted that the future work would look less like a career ladder and more like a portfolio, a deliberate combination of skills, projects, experiences, and income streams that compound together over time. He was 35 years early, but he was completely right. And David Epstein, he wrote an entire book about this called Range. So his research shows that in complex and fast-changing fields, people who build broad experience before committing to direction specifically, they actually consistently outperform those who specialize too early. So Roger Federer, the tennis player, was a great example. He tried half a dozen sports before settling on tennis when he was a teenager. And his range of skills made him more adaptable, harder to replace, and became an extremely great tennis player because of that. So my own path is a very clear example because I know this. It's not been a straight line. I've worked in complete different industries, from tutoring to finance to advertising to marketing, cryptocurrency, and then in tech. I picked up skills that seemed very unrelated at the time. I made these massive pivots that felt really risky at the moment. But looking back now, every single one of those moves, they added a layer to something that nobody else has. And that combination is the moat. Because think about every skill, industry, and experience you ever touched across your entire career so far. And most people look at that list and they see a messy, non-linear path. I want you to look at it and see a portfolio, because that's really what it is. And the person who can connect dots across different domains in the world where AI handles the predictable. And that person exactly is the type of person that companies and clients will pay the most for. The third idea is that you want to build your name, not just your resume. And most people believe that if they're good enough, opportunities will find them. That if they just put their head down, do amazing work, build their skills, the right people will notice. I believed this for years, and I was definitely wrong about this, because doing this kept me in the dark for years in terms of my own career growth. And honestly, this is the one that most people resist the longest. But if you do it right, it is the one that opens the most door, more than what you ever thought could be possible. And it's because being good at something and being known for it, they're actually two completely different things. You can be the best at something, right? If no one knows you about it, what's the point? That matters whether you're working the job or if you're currently building a business or your brand. And in the world that we're living in now, the gap between them is getting wider every single day. So let's say you're currently looking for a new job. Your CV gets you considered. But in my experience, after moving industry for over 4 times and building my own portfolio career path, it's actually your reputation and your personal brand that gets you chosen for the job. Because even if the interviewer or the client doesn't know you, they're likely spooking you and looking you up online before you even made it to the first interview. And really interestingly, LinkedIn's own data, it shows that 70 to 85% of jobs are filled through personal connections and reputation. It's never through like a public job posting. And that means that the majority of the best opportunities, they never reach the open job market. They go to the person who already comes to mind. And you probably know friends who got their job because someone they know, right? That's exactly how it works. And I think your online presence, what you've written, taught, shared, built publicly, is now ever more searchable, verifiable, and influential than your former credentials. Because credentials, they tell people what you studied. But your public body of work that you share, it tells people how you think. And I believe that the second is so much more harder to fake. So I started building in public before I felt ready. And I'm a natural introvert, so I found it to be really awkward, especially sharing ideas that were not really quite formed yet. And for a long time, nothing much happened, but I just kept going. And eventually the work that I did started to compound. People found my content ideas from all different channels. Opportunities came in that I never thought would have been possible through a job board or a CV, speaking invitations, client inquiries, partnerships, things that no credentials could have generated outside of my 9-to-5 job, and eventually became my future career and business. So if you commit to doing this, creating things that others find helpful, and showing up consistently by making this into a habit, I guarantee you that amazing things will happen in your career and life, even if you never go viral. So Adam Grant's research on networks, he found that people who consistently share their knowledge generously across their network without expecting anything in return, they actually end up at the top of the success networks over time. Not because they were the most talented, but usually because generosity, it results in building a reputation. And reputation opens doors that talent alone just cannot. So the most valuable thing that you can build right now is this body of evidence that you already have one. So start sharing what you know before you start to feel like an expert. Like, what would you tell yourself from 10 years ago? Start there, right? Because right now you know so much more than someone who needs exactly what you know. The next idea is to learn to detach from the outcome. And here's something that's really interesting that I noticed in my own life. The times I really wanted something to go well the most were often the times I performed the worst, right? Did you ever notice this as well? The job interview that I wanted to go well, to land the job after being made redundant, And that client pitch I went in, that I was really counting on to make it in the early days of my business to keep the cash flow going. In every situation, the wanting, it got in the way of the doing. And that desperation was this energy that kind of came across and everyone could feel it. And the anxiety of the outcome, it really made the quality of the work itself suffer. And Simone Biles is the greatest gymnast of all time. She's spoken openly about how the pressure of being the greatest nearly broke her. When she withdrew from the Tokyo Olympics, the entire world just watched in shock. And when she came back at the Paris Olympics in 2024 and she won 4 medals, she talked about how everything had changed. And really that was because her relationship with the outcome. She said that performing from a place of joy rather than the weight of the expectation, that changed everything for her. She learned to release the pressure of the result and really just trust in the work. So here's the thing, and research actually backs this up. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, they spent decades studying what drives sustained human performance. And their self-determination theory, they found that people who are intrinsically motivated, driven by real interest, curiosity, and the love of the work itself, they consistently outperform people who are extrinsically motivated, so driven by money, fame, or followers, and how they see themselves, not just in the short term, but over the long term as well. So the people who chase results, they usually burn out or plateau. And people who love the work, they just keep going. So this is the paradox, is that the more you detach from the outcome, the better your outcome actually becomes. It's not because you don't care. I know that you do care, but you can channel that care into the quality of your effort that you're putting into it, rather than the anxiety of what the result's going to be. And I can tell you this from experience, it's ridiculously freeing. So I'm not going to pretend this is easy, but what changes is where you put your energy. And you start asking yourself, did I do my best work? And that question is one that you can always say yes to. The other one, you just can't control. So try this one today. For the next project, the next application, the next pitch, the next interview, give everything that you have in the process. Be ruthlessly about the quality of your effort, but then let go of what happens next. Because your energy is far more better to spend that on the next piece of work, the next interview, the next project, than being anxious about the last result. This next idea is called the reset trap. So we live in a culture that rewards the dramatic transformations, the overnight success story, the radical 30-day transformations that you can buy for $29.99, the one pivot that changed everything. And social media makes it look like that's how progress actually works. Super quick, instant, and there's no patience needed. So Angela Duckworth, and I love her story on this, at the University of Pennsylvania, spent years studying high achievers and people who are successful across different fields. Could be athletes, military cadets, teachers, sales teams. And across every single domain that she studied, the strongest predictor of success was not talent. It was actually grit. She was so passionate about this that she did a TED Talk about it. And later on a book, so I highly recommend checking these out. She defined grit as the passion plus perseverance that equals success on long-term goals. So the ability to stay committed to something even when the results are slow, even when other people have moved on, even when everything stopped to feel exciting. And Darren Hardy wrote about the mathematics of this and the compound effect. I'll never forget coming across this idea years ago when I was at this low point in my own life, and how this idea, it changed my mindset forever. So 1% better every single day, it compounds to 37 times better over the course of a year. And most people dramatically overestimate what they can do in 90 days and dramatically underestimate what they can do in 3 years. And I definitely felt this in my own life when I got started, is that so many things can happen in 3 years' time when you just look back on how that compound effect actually happened. So the people who outperform over time are not doing more dramatic things. They are just doing these consistent things for longer than everyone else. And because almost nobody is doing this, the long game is one of the least crowded places that you can compete in. So pick the thing that matters the most to you, your skills, your business, your next biggest hairy goal, and make a decision that you're going to play a 3-year game, not a 90-day one. You're going to put your blinders on. You're going to compare yourself to who you were last month and stay in the game long enough to let the compounding do its work. So these are the 6 ideas and advice I want to share with you. And ultimately, your special superpower is about deciding what kind of person you're going to be in a world that is changing faster than most people can keep up with. Because the 99% are waiting. They're waiting for the right moment, the right feeling, the sign that they're ready. And that wait becomes a story that they tell themselves about why things have not moved yet. But you're not most people. You do not have to be one of them. It's time to close that gap, protect your attention, build your portfolio skills, and share what you know, and stay in the game longer than anyone else think is reasonable. I look forward to seeing the new you in a few years. If you enjoyed this video, you might also like this one about how you can genuinely start changing your life and reset your future. I'm Laurie. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.